And so, as we move into the sermon or into the message, uh, John's message has been from this day forward, and we've had two messages so far. The premise behind this is from this day forward. There are some things you can do to make your marriage better, starting even right now. And raise your hand if you're unmarried. Unmarried. Okay. There are some things that you can do even before you get married to be aware of to make your married life better, if that's where you're headed. So, first one was on seeking God, and quite frankly, without God, any marriage is going to struggle. It's going to be difficult. Having Him as their center of the marriage gives you a place to go, some commonality, some grace. Second one he talked about last week, was fighting fair. And ultimately, fighting fair means finding ways not to fight. I mean, or if you're fighting fair, living through to some rules. Really, if you're going to fight in your marriage, what you should fight is against whatever's coming against you. Whether it's outside influences, disease, sickness, all these things that come, you need to fight against that together, not fight against each other. And there's some things that you have to do. It means getting away from yourself. You know, there's the old saw, don't let the sun go down on your anger. It doesn't mean fight till you've got it resolved. It means humbling yourself and getting rid of your anger so that you can get it resolved. And so, a great story. Now, when I got tagged in for continuity to continue this message series, it's about having fun today. And to be honest with you, what about this face screams fun? Yeah, okay, you get my point. And so, really, I need some help with this one. And so, I'm going to ask somebody who has made my life immeasurably more fun than I could ever imagine. And I'm going to have my wife, Jody, come up and join me for talking about this. So, if you'd welcome her up. Okay, so real quick, can you hear both of us? All right, excellent. So, a couple of things about marriage. There's an old saying. I think Al Cap had it in a cartoon years. Anybody here remember Al Cap cartoons? Oh,
See, he's
wow.
old.
Okay. There's an old saying that says, "Man does not know what happiness is until he's married, and by then it's too late." And so, that's one perspective that's out there. There's not necessarily the idea that, oh, marriage is fun. You don't see the big blockbuster Hollywood movie that says, "Get married, have fun." That's never a movie tagline out there. So, but the Bible has something very interesting to say about it in Ecclesiastes 9:9. It says to live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days of your life. God has given you under the sun. The wife God gives you is your reward for all of your earthly toil. Wow, isn't that just exciting and fun? Same verse in NIV says a little differently. It says, "Enjoy your life with your wife, whom you love." And so, talking about this and going through this, there's different kinds of fun that are out there. There's the fun that's let's call it the bouncy house fun, where you go out and you jump up and down, and enjoy it around, and it's great while you're doing it, and then when it's over, you're sick, or maybe some other kids vomited in there, or their stinky feet, whatever. It doesn't last. There's adrenaline-based fun, and so there's things you can do, and oh, this is great. And that's not a bad thing, and those are good to have. But ultimately, the fun that we're looking at, or the happiness that is in Ecclesiastes, is really rooted in joy. It's that joyousness of heart that brings satisfaction and fulfillment and completion. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. And it's important to look at this because if you think about that, if you don't find joy, really what your marriage is it's reduced to just a business relationship. Two people existing together in a single place to accomplish tasks. And so, Jody, what might the business relationship look like for women?
Well, we talked about this for a little bit. And even if you're not married or you don't have children, your job is your primary focus, right? So one of the big things in your business or your life that you talk about is your job, your vocation. If you have children, then you're the child care provider as the mom. You're the cleaning service. You're taking care of the house. You're making sure it looks good, making sure everything looks good. You might be the taxi service depending on the age of your kids or the drivability of them. And so there's a lot of business and task oriented things that go on related to marriage that you share. Ken's favorite is, what is William doing? Where's he at? Why do I get to be his keeper? He's 18. Let him decide. Let him tell you.
So, and that's kind of the women's side of the business. From the guys, again, we've got breadwinning. There are certain things you have to do to just make things happen. Some other things the repair service. Something breaks. It's you and YouTube and a couple of wrenches, and maybe you can get it fixed. Or it might be landscaping, making the lawn or the house look the way you want it, keeping up with the neighbors or not caring about the neighbors, whatever your preference is. You're the mechanic. Something breaks, the car breaks down, you're out there changing the oil, doing whatever it is, or taking it to somebody else. It's that do-it-yourself mentality. Sometimes do-it-yourself is writing the check, but it's still your responsibility. You're part of the business. It's the plumber. At least in our household, that's when something backs up, breaks, leaks. It seems to be where I'm at. And then there's one huge part of the business part that always seems to fall to the male, and that's exterminator.
Spider killer.
I mean, ladies, how many here are the spider killers in the relationship? Oh, they're out there. Okay. So, I mean, these roles do cross back and forth. And so when you look at it, again, there's just a huge risk if you spend all of your time just being in a business relationship because it's easy. Things have to get done. Things can take priority. I mean, nobody wants to sit down and talk about spiritual growth in the future while the toilet's overflowing. I mean, you got to take care. You got to do what you got to do. If somebody's car's got to be repaired to get to work the next day, you got to do it. But the real risk is what happens when the business ends or the need for the business. What happens when maybe you're settled in or maybe those kiddos leave and there's no need for the child care till the grandchildren come around or things get different or it's how many here are empty nesters and find it much easier to keep the house clean? So some of those business needs end. And so what happens if you've spent 12, 13, 20 years in a business relationship and you don't have to have that business relationship anymore? And so that's just one of the real risks. And you end up with maybe boredom or just other things going on.
So one thing that happens when you date, you don't look for the most boring person to live with. You look for exciting. You look for something fun. So we want that in our regular relationships. And when I married Ken, it wasn't because he was boring and he could take care of business. I married him because he made me laugh. He was fun. We had a good time. We communicated well together. So when you're dating, you're not looking for boring. You don't want that in your marriage either. So you're looking for that person. Well, you've got to keep that going throughout your marriage. That's got to be something that you continue to do.
And so really fun or that joyous completion is not a luxury in marriage. If we don't have time for fun in our marriage, or if we don't make time for fun in our marriage, it's very difficult to have an enduring marriage. And so there are three types of fun every married couple must enjoy. And the first is face-to-face. And again, comparing and contrasting to dating, when we first were dating, it was nothing to talk till 2 in the morning. Literally about nothing. I mean, whether it was your grade school teacher or your dog or, whatever movie or those shoes or pizza toppings, you could talk about anything till 2 in the morning. But statistics show that now most couple are in each other's presence for less than 30 minutes a day. We're talking physically in the presence. And of that 30 minutes, they are actually talking for less than 7. Now, I know there's some difference. There's some retirees, and our recent pandemic and lockdown changed that. But still in all, 30 minutes in the presence of your spouse, and you're talking for 7 minutes. And that can be problematic.
Oh, it's my turn. Oops. Most communication is about the business. It's about your kids' schedules. It's about your personal life. It's about your. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about our spiritual growth. We don't talk a lot about our future plans. You don't spend a lot of time talking about some of those things that are the deeper things. And for women, it's more fulfilling to spend that time talking about those things. Guys can sit in the nothing box for hours, but girls need to have that communication. They need that face-to-face time. And sometimes by the time you get the business end of the conversation done, your 7 minutes is up. It's like, done. It's time for me to watch TV. Look at that teamwork. But sometimes you don't have the time to have those conversations about what God's doing in your life, what you're learning, what's going on, where you're struggling, where you need your pet spouse's prayers or support. You're not having that time because your time limit is so short.
And we're going to talk a little bit more as we go on that. But looking at the Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. It says, "How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of a craftsman's hands. Your navel is a rounded goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies. Your breasts are like 2 fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are the pools of Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim." Guys, some real thought went into this communication. Real thought went into what he was writing about his beloved. You see, there's a huge difference in how guys communicate and how women communicate. Guys want headlines. Women like details. If the typical modern guy wrote this, he would say, "She's hot. She's really hot." And there's not a lot more to it. So we look at detail. So, man, when you're looking at communicating with your spouse, women want and desire more communication. And if you aren't communicating with them, they're going to might look somewhere else for that communication. And if you think about it, guys, if you're like, "Oh, you're hot," or "Thanks," "Mowed the lawn," "Thanks for dinner," that's really not particularly fulfilling from the women's standpoint. And if there's somebody else out here who says, "You're amazing, you do a great job taking care of your family. You do a great job with your kids. Wow, I'm impressed with all you do in your life." Where do you think she's going to go for that communication? So, guys, we got to step up our game.
But how do we get there? How do we converse? How do we make this happen? How do you create time where your goal is to talk, to communicate? Sometimes it's taking a drive. Now gas prices are kind of high, so maybe it's driving somewhere. There's times when you're driving to events. I know we've had a lot of conversations in our family as a family, but together, and the kids are sitting in the back seat. They're listening. But when you spend time together face to face, that's when you remember why you like that person. When you're doing those things, when you're going golfing, when you're spending that face-to-face time, that's when you're getting the opportunity to remember. Ken and I started a book. We didn't start a book. We bought a book. And it's called 469 Questions for Couples. And in 2020, where we were all kind of locked down, I was in Boise and Ken was here. And so most of our conversations were on Duo. Well, I don't know if you know my husband very well, but when you put a screen in front of him, his brain shuts off. And so he sits there. So we had to have something to stimulate some conversation. And these books are great conversation starters. And they're little things like, can you name a successful couple? And then talk about what success means to you. And it just started some conversations, and we carried it out throughout the year. But it was something that started non-business communication. It gave us an opportunity to talk about different things. And there was, it ran the gamut. It went from,
What was your biggest fear as a child?
yeah, biggest fear as a child. What sex things should I be doing different for you? You're like, whoa, hello, next question, please. But there was a lot of different things that were face-to-face time. It gave you something to start. Sometimes when you've been married for 27 years, you look at each other and you go, yeah, I know everything about you. I have nothing new to tell you. You have nothing new to tell me. So instead of talking on your phone or being together and you're both on your phone, put it away and have some face-to-face time.
Next type of communication, next type of fun that you can have, again, that joyous fulfillment and satisfaction, is side to side. And again, in Song of Songs, verse 11, it says, "Come, my lover, let us go into the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages." And it's a truism out there, but men especially crave that side by side time. Men are much more likely to call their spouse their best friend than women are likely to call their husband their friend. And you're like, why is that? Well, guys are wired to compete in teams, in school, in business, to go and achieve. A lot of guys' interactions are not conducive to being somebody's best friend. You can have a hunting buddy, you can have a fishing buddy, golf buddy, whatever else, but they may or may not be your best friend, somebody who talks with you. And so guys are much more likely to do that. There's things that really make Jody my best friend. We hold hands. We'll take time and play cards together and discuss anything and everything. We'll take drives and we'll do our question book. But just that face to or side to side time, just being there, it fulfills a need for non-physical intimacy and validation, that friendship. We serve together. We do a couple of different things. We do the Salvation Army dinner. We do food rescue together. It gives you a sense of accomplishment and achievement together. But that side to side is hugely important for guys. Even if it means maybe not talking or just being in the same presence. I know, which kind of drives you crazy, that I like having you there, but I don't necessarily do anything with you when you're there. So we hunt together, and we've changed. We go hunting. We don't hunt maybe the way I normally would, but you know what? It's sure fun to have your wife there and talk and do different things and spend time. And yeah, maybe we're not up at the top of the mountain at the first light, but
I've gotten up a lot earlier on those days than I wanted to, I'll tell you what.
but it's a lot more satisfying when you've got a good friend there for you.
So there's a couple things that I've learned in being married that men like that I didn't know. And one of those things, and this was one of the first questions in that question book that I went, what? Because one of the things guys really connect with is when you're doing something with them. And I said, but you never talk to me when we do that. You want to do stuff with me? Yeah, I just really loved it when we put up the gutters. And I thought, that was not a close moment. But it was close for him. It was a connection point for Ken. And he loves doing things with me, whether we're hunting, whether we're putting up gutters, whether we're doing something in the yard. He likes that connection where we're working together. And that didn't connect for me. And he's like, yeah, that's when I feel the closest to you. And I'm thinking, out of all the times we're together, this is it? And he says, the other time that really is important is after the debrief, the time after when we can talk about it. He can tell me how great he was and how much he enjoyed me helping and handing him that hammer. You know, he loves that. But that's when he feels close to me. Annie can, she's loving it. But that's when we
it's really when guys can open up. You feel like you've accomplished something. I mean, guys playing sports, doing anything, you won the game, you just go, great job, and go home. You're like, no, man, did you see that? Even if you're watching, if your team is playing on football on Sunday, and you're like, oh yeah, and the guy, the quarterback dropped back, and the guys in the secondary mirrored him, and then he woke up, stepped up, man, it was a pick six. Isn't that amazing?
And women don't care, but be happy for them. Wait,
But
I got one more point.
okay,
Okay. Men need spouses, not mothers. Do not be their mom. Ken will get to the men's side first, but don't be their mom. Because that puts you in a different role, and you want to be their wife. You want to be side to side. You don't want to be the authoritarian over them.
so
Now you can go.
and again, when you're there, if you can get your guy to open up, and he's talking about that, that's another time to just bring up, because if he's communicating and enthused, you can bring up other things like, that's awesome. What are we going to do about the bedroom paint or painting the bedroom?
We can do it together.
We can do it together. We can be a team just like that. Oh yeah, we can be a team. You know, I can do it. You know, that's when guys have accomplished something, that is a great time to bring up different things and go through there. So again, guys are more open if you've spent some side-to-side time with them, and if you've done it and accomplished something together, they're ready to move on and accomplish the next thing. If you've caught them with the Al Bundy
No.
sitting on the couch doing nothing, you're going to have a hard time getting him out of the nothing box and moving on to something else. And so, now guys, you want more side-to-side time with your spouse? There's some things that you can do. Help her out, lighten her load. Women like to get things done. You know, guys, we can sit there and watch a 3-hour football game and not feel like it's wasted because we're involved and we're there. And she's like, well, there's laundry to be done, and there's dishes to be done, and there's food to be made for the week. And so, if you would like that time with her, go out there and lighten your load. Guys, I'm going to rat you out, and in doing so, I'm ratting myself out. It takes less than 6 minutes to load or unload a dishwasher. Sorry. No excuses. It's not that big a deal. You know, there's no mystery to running a vacuum. If you can run a lawnmower, you can run a vacuum. And depending on the carpet, you can still make cool designs in it too. So you can do that. And dusting, really, you had a very long-term relationship with that t-shirt before it got turned into a dust rag. So you can use it again. So lighting her load, you can make it better. One of the things we did with the kids when we were younger, when it just seemed like the house was dirty and it was overwhelmed, we'd set a timer. And let's see how much we can get done in 20 minutes.
And you put on fun music, you make it fun. Everybody takes a different corner,
And,
and you go.
and we could get most of the house, the big stuff anyway, taken care of in 20 minutes. And then we had time to go do fun things. We had time to go do other things and realize what got done was what was most important. And then the rest of it we catch at another time. And so that helps out. Another thing, guys, where you can help your spouse or your wife be better is be very clear about expectations and what you expect. Ladies, I love you. Guys really don't care if there's a doily under the lamp. Guys, how many of you know what a doily is? I'm proud of you. Do you care? You don't necessarily care that all of the dishes match or everything. You're happy. Guys' needs are much more basic. And if you can communicate to your spouse that I know that's important to you and I'll help you get it done, but it's not necessarily something I expect. One of the challenges that happens out there, and it's a way that we communicate, you know, guys will come home from the day, typically maybe the spouse has been there, maybe she got there ahead of time. He walks in the door and said, what'd you get done today? And ladies, what's your first thought?
Not that, not that, not that, not that. Those
And
are things I didn't get done.
if you don't point it out, he'd never notice.
Maybe. Some husbands are different. Some husbands notice.
But it's not important. You're thinking, hey, I'm talking about guys, we're going to talk about what we accomplished. And they're thinking about, hey, what didn't we get done? And so changing that and saying, I don't necessarily need to have everything that you want. It's more important that we spend that time together, side by side or even face to face, than, you know, the dryer vent's been cleaned or whatever. So, a couple other things, guys. If you want to spend time side by side time with her, and you really need to get into her world, and she needs to get in yours. If you want to spend time on a duck blind, guys, it's not going to kill you to spend time at Hobby Lobby. How many guys have been in Hobby Lobby by choice? If your spouse isn't looking. so but there's things. If you're going to want her in your world, get into her world. Guys, antiquing is not torture. It can be fun. But spending that time with one another, and it's modifying that. Maybe you're not at the top of the mountain 2 hours before sunrise. But we've shot a lot of game at 10 in the morning.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
So you can change that. And then finally, guys, be her husband. Don't be her son. Just because your mother took care of your laundry doesn't mean you can't take care of yours. Just because your mother packed your lunch doesn't mean you can't help out. If you want to spend side to side with your spouse, don't be your son. Next way to have that joy, that fulfillment, that completion, is belly button to belly button. And so just reading the next verse, it says, "Come, my lover, let us go into the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. And there I will give you my love." Sex in the park is the last thing on a long list of things I'd expect to find in the Bible. But it's there. There's physical intimacy that brings joy and completion, and it's not just for reproduction and drudgery. Proverbs 5:18 through 19 says, "May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always, and may you ever be captivated by her love." Again, we're looking at that joyous sense of fulfillment and completion. Now we're going to have a very frank talk here before we move into the next of this. Most men desire or need more sex than their spouse. Most women really don't understand the depth of this, but it can lead to very serious consequences. There are many barriers that happen to sex. There's different things that can be out there, but not having the fulfillment of that need or desire can be tough. Ladies, lack of sex is as emotionally serious to a man as sudden silence is to a woman. I'm going to replay that. Lack of physical intimacy, sex, is emotionally serious to a man as sudden silence is to a woman, because it spells one word, and that word is rejection. Now, there can be a million reasons why it doesn't happen, or what's in the way, or what objections are out there. But understand, we're talking about a serious business. If you're not finding that physical intimacy and fulfillment, you got some problems on the horizon. And ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, you are the only legitimate way your spouse has to find sexual fulfillment. Based on God's word, based on his plan. You in that marriage relationship are the only legitimate way to find sexual fulfillment. And if you're not there yet, the implication is you don't have a legitimate way outside of marriage either. And so I talk a little bit about removing some of the obstacles to that belly button to belly button fun.
So overcoming some of the obstacles, understanding that that intimate relationship's not always going to be the same. You think when you get married it's going to be great and it's going to be great forever, and it might not be great in the beginning because you don't know how, you don't know what you're doing. But as you age, as you have children, that changes. As your children get older, that changes again. As you age, that changes. So you've got to be more flexible to have that fun. Oh yeah, this knee doesn't work the same as it did. I can't move like that. Um, Spontaneity is nice. It's nice to have the spur of the moment time, but sometimes planning is great. Sometimes saying, okay, I would like to spend that alone time with you tonight. Put that on your calendar. It makes you think about it. It gets you excited. You start thinking about what you want to do, how you want to fulfill your spouse.
And guess what? If it's on the calendar, guys, you don't have to trick her into it. You know what's going to happen. So
it's a planned event.
It's a planned event, you know. You don't have to hint, hint.
And on that note, a little teasing is okay. It's fun. It's fun to tease and play and rub up against them and then go finish making dinner. They like that. They like to be noticed. They like to have that. He likes to be noticed. A little whisper, a little kiss on the neck, and then walk away. It's kind of fun to have that tease and that play moment. And that's what you guys did when you were dating. Think about it. Go back to those times where you did that, where you played with them in the beginning. And it's not like the movies. I don't know about you, but I don't want 14 people in my bedroom with a camera. I don't want it. So it's not like the movies. It all looks all beautiful and nice and romantic, but that's not real. That's not real life. And it's not how marriage and intimacy is not directed or rehearsed.
I mean, let's be honest. I could be great with a rehearsal and a director and a screenwriter for lines and a makeup artist and a physical trainer and the right lighting. I could be awesome, but it ain't that way.
So another thing I mentioned briefly in that book, and we're not quoting the book, but it's just something we've learned. It asks some questions when you're not in the heat of the moment. What do you like what I do? What do you want differently? And it takes you out of the heat of that moment and gives you an opportunity to talk about some things you like, so that when you are in the heat of the moment, you go, oh, I remember that he likes this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do something different. And it brings some different concepts into that face-to-face and that belly button to belly button relationship. Now, one thing we want to talk about just real briefly is sometimes men and women have been abused in their past, sexually, physically, and there's fear there. There's some intimacy or trauma, and I can say from experience that I experienced that, and then when Ken came at me in a certain way, it shut me down. If you're experiencing that, then it's okay to seek help for that, and it's okay to get counseling or to get with a trusted friend or even talk to your spouse. Your husband is a good-willed person. They're not the person who's there to hurt you. And when you talk to them about those events and how that affects you, it increases in that face-to-face time, so that time with that belly button to belly button is more intimate because they are not your abuser. Does that make sense? They are the person who wants to give you pleasure, not pain. And physical intimacy, my last point, is not always sex. Sometimes it's just skin-to-skin time. Sometimes it's just hanging out and laughing and joking and playing. And that's okay time too, because that's intimacy. That's time with your spouse. That's not about performance. That's about being close to each other. And that's a good thing too.
And guys, sometimes that's so much better, because one of the things that out there that guys tend to get is that impression that you have to know how to please a woman. You have to know how to make things happen. And as the snow on the roof gets a little bit whiter, sometimes that performance issues get in there and you worry about it. But that physical intimacy, that skin-to-skin time without sex can be just as great. And so that's another way to fulfill that need and to get that completion. Guys, and maybe, let's see, everybody in that far section, you don't maybe have to listen to this.
No, listen, because it applies in the future.
Okay, yeah, listen to it in the future. Remember what you did when you're dating? The first thing you did was clean out the car. You know, get everything knitted out there, and you got that cleaned out, and you're all sweaty and nasty. Then you went in and you took a shower. And, you know, maybe you trimmed the beard up a little bit, got the grease out from underneath the fingernails, put on the deodorant, put on the favorite smelly stuff. If you were in junior high, it was Axe spray, guaranteed to repel every woman within a 50-yard radius. Am I wrong? No, but you did. You put some effort into that. And as you get older, don't think you got her. You know, little effort is still required and appreciated. So, you know,
Showers are nice.
showers are very nice. Trimming things up, getting things done. Guys, you can take care of those gross, ugly eagle claw toenails. Guys can get pedicures. Get them cleaned up. I mean, how sexy is it to get those nasty things there? You know, think about it. Change who you are. If you've only been in that business relationship, ladies, how many of you want to have sex with your plumber? Would you rather have sex with your spouse? So guys, change your approach. Don't think there. Do those things so it's not just business. Go back to doing what you did before. And take a look at that. And so those are some things you can do to remove some of those obstacles for that belly button to belly button fun. We've got a couple more frank words and then we'll close out here. One of the things that we hear when we do mentoring together is, I just don't feel anything anymore. Feelings can be very treacherous and can be a lie. I would submit that if you're not feeling it, you've reduced your relationship to that business relationship. Again, it's hard to feel something to the taxi driver, the cook, the janitor, the plumber.
Unless they're cute.
Thanks. But it's hard to feel those things. And so work on the things. Work on that face-to-face communication. Talk. Work on that side-to-side. Feelings are a result of actions, not of inaction. Spend that time getting to know your spouse, redeveloping what you once had.
So one thing we've talked a lot about too is you find what you're looking for. If you're looking for the negative, oh, he never picks up his towel, he leaves it on the bed, and now my bed's all wet, and you're always looking at the negative, that's all you'll ever find. So look for the positives. When you start looking for the things, oh, he was so nice, he brought me coffee. I don't like coffee, but women do. Lots of people do. He brought me something, he gave me a gift, he did something. When you start looking at those positives, you start to look more positively at your spouse and see them for the positives, not the negatives. It changes your perspective.
And an important piece of that is look to your spouse only. Because if you look at the grass down the street, that grass is always greener.
Because they watered it.
Yeah, they watered it, something happened. But when you look over there, it's very easy to only see the very external piece of that. And you have to realize that nothing is ever perfect. If you look to that and say, oh, wow, that would be so much better, you know, I guarantee you that there's a septic system under that grass as well. There are worms and there's crabgrass and there's weeds in that one as well. It's no better. Nothing's ever perfect. Guys, if you're out there and thinking about that hot 25-year-old, just realize this. She's going to look a whole lot different if she'd done what your spouse has already done, had 3 kids and been with you for 15 years. Guarantee she's not going to look that way
15 years later.
on an even scale. And so your spouse has sacrificed for you. She's given up a lot to be with you. And that is beauty is worth so much more than any physical looks could be. You see, to get into this and to stay into this, you need to basically do what you once did. If you want what you once had, you have to do what you once did. And if you never did it, you need to start doing it. Looking for that face-to-face fun. Looking for that side-to-side. And don't end the business relationship, but develop it into something so much more. It's not a direct verse, but it's a reminder to everyone from Revelations 2:5 is remember the heights from which you have fallen. Repent and go do the things you did first. Speaking specifically about our relationship with Christ, but that same concept is applicable in your marriage relationship. If you don't have the spark, the fun, the joy, the fulfillment, go back, do what you once did. Learn some new tricks, change, adapt. Because from this day forward, you can do so much more than you are now. There's some questions there to talk about. I really encourage you to do these with your spouse this week. There's a rating. There's an event about having a fun experience. And then there's planning a fun experience. But most of all, I really encourage you to do that with your spouse this week. And for those of you who aren't married and are looking to it, think about what you could do to develop a fun, meaning joyous, complete, and satisfying marriage. Let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time to gather here. We thank you for the time that we can get in and look at some examples from the Bible, but also talk realistically about how to improve marriages for this whole series on just changing our marriages from this day forward. And Lord, we know again that without Christ's death and resurrection and the gift of our salvation, we would not even have that ability. So again, we just thank you that you have plans and you have guidance, and you created us to have great relationships. And we thank you so very much for that, and pray it in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.